Hi, I'm Christina, and welcome to this special episode of Women's Health, Wealth, and Happiness Interviews to Inspire. This is our special panel of inspiring women. Today we have Rachel, Melissa, and Gail. Hello, ladies.
Hi.
My name is Rachel Christie. I'm currently the owner of Street Smart Beauty, where I offer skincare and waxing services, although that is in flux these days. We recently relocated to an area, a town called La Plata in Maryland. And if you're like, where is that? That's what everybody says. We have bought into the country lifestyle. We bought 10 acres of land. We've got like a tiny house. And so, yes, the chickens are coming. I don't know when, but they're coming at some point. So yeah, I'm in a point of transition right now in my life. And it seems like a lot of doors are closing, but like new ones are opening. But everything's happening really, really fast for me right now. So that's where I am.
Howdy. I'm sitting in Valley Forge, Pennsylvania, where I live, and I am a documentary filmmaker, and I make films about women telling their stories and hopefully inspiring others to do some of the things that they're doing in old age. The two films that I have out now, they're about older women. Not that I won't do films about younger women, and there are a few younger women that pop into my films, but it's been focused on messaging from older women, which I think is really important. And a little bit about me, I left a corporate career after 24 years and decided to become a filmmaker, or see if I could. So I do have one film out that's streaming called Beyond 60 that everybody can find on most platforms. And Climbing into Life is now going into its 15th and 16th film festival with 9 awards so far. And it's just been an amazing journey. And I am working on 2 small film projects and then a bigger one, hopefully in the spring.
Hello, it's really wonderful to be here. I'm Gail Harris. I live in Framingham, Massachusetts, which is in the Boston area, just west of Boston. And I am a certified ghostwriter specializing in women's memoir. And I'm also an IPNE Book Award finalist for the memoir Finding Zoe at Independent Book Publishers of New England. And I love what I do. I'm working with an incredible client right now, and we're wrapping up the end of the story. It's been a wonderful experience. And I love helping women tell their stories and through the process heal.
Fantastic. I can't wait to hear the final chapters close on that. All right, Rachel, what question would you like to ask the ladies?
This is great. I love the introductions. I feel inspired. There's a saying that I have, everybody has a story. And I'm always interested in what the story is. So when I go to networking events or something like that, I'm always disappointed. Everybody just wants to start with like who they are, what they're doing, kids, married, this, that, like all of the check boxes of life or where you are in life. But when it comes to storytelling, I think one of the things that I struggle with, not a struggle, but I'm constantly trying to refine the way I get people to share their story with me. It's not my business or anything, right? I'm just interested in their story. But I also have to very quickly create this presence of I'm safe, right? I'm safe, but I'm interested and I want to know something, the evolution of you, right? I guess the question is like, how can we as, especially women, because we're talkers, right? How can we help create that, kind of very quickly, that feeling where people feel okay to share that story, but also to, and this is just an observation, I think people forget that they have a story. Mm-hmm. I think that they buy into cultural narratives, mm-hmm. and the narrative becomes their story more than their actual story. And that's just an observation. I don't know if that's what you guys see, since you guys are in the business of storytelling and helping people tell their stories. Mm-hmm. That was a lot.
That was a lot. I'll jump in. I mean, it's a full question. It's a big question, but it's real. And when you are going out to reach out to people to determine whether or not they're going to be willing to tell you their story. There's this connection that has to exist. And if you can't build the connection, and you can usually tell that in the very early stages of a conversation with them, that they are not going to open up to me. They're either not comfortable with me or they're not comfortable with their own story. And I don't honestly, in getting ready to do my first film, I interviewed almost 100 women over the phone in a year to try to come up with the 9 women for the film. So I was constantly asking the same questions of these strangers that I was cold calling. And I will tell you, the ones that just opened themselves up to me and said, go ahead, make a film about me. We have no idea who you are. We understand you've never made a film before, but there's something, I feel a connection with you. So I'm able to open up. And I don't think there's anything you can do to force that. I think it is a natural thing. And for me, and I'm talking as a woman in her mid 70s, I've been around the block for a long time in a lot of different interesting positions where I had to tell stories or I had to receive stories from other people. So I became very comfortable with that starting in my 30s and 40s and 50s. And now it's like a natural thing for me to try to draw people out and get their story. So I think that there are some tricks to doing that, but I think that we need to accept the fact that a lot of people are not comfortable telling their story. And like you said, Rachel, people don't even think they have a story. But everybody does. Everyone has a story. And when I've broken through that, cracked that egg with some of the very hesitant people, once they became more comfortable with me, knowing that I was safe, that I wasn't going to say anything that they didn't want me to say, or that I would change it if they asked me to change it, that's when this feeling of intimacy with the person that you're talking with becomes available to both parties. It's not always there, but I think the storyteller that's trying to grab the story, like Gail, for instance, they have to be a certain type of person that automatically makes people feel comfortable. It's sort of like a universe thing. You either have it or you don't, and trying to wrangle something out of someone who doesn't want to give it just doesn't work. That's my overarching, broad experience in getting people comfortable with me so that I'm able to tell their story.
I think that makes perfect sense because you do within 30 seconds, you can tell like this is not for them. They're here for other reasons, whatever it is. But I'm always a little sad because I always feel like it's a missed opportunity for 2 people to actually make a connection.
Absolutely.
And people will pass on that all day, every day, 24/7. And I wish there was just a little bit more trust in when we meet people. Like you don't have to tell. My grandmother used to say, you can tell people some things, but you don't have to tell them everything. And the hanging out with dirty laundry, all those phrases that we grew up with.
Yeah.
But I'm not seeking information. I'm seeking connection.
Yes.
I'm seeking your humanity, your empathy, your compassion, like how you go out into the world. Those are things I'm looking for. So yes, I think, everything you said kind of validates like what my spidey senses were feeling. But since you're like, this is like what you're doing, I was like, let me just ask, see if there's a
it's a great question.
It's not trick. I don't want to say that word because we're not trying to trick people, but we're just trying to like, just get them to open up just a little so that I can have a connection with you because that's what I'm looking for.
And one thing I will add to that is, again, using my age and experience, the older that women get, the more open they become. That's been my experience. Cracking the nut on a 30-year-old or a 40-year-old who's still unsure of themselves and, God, I don't want to tell my story because I don't think it sounds good yet. They want it to sound good. And they don't understand that it's just their story is part of their process and evolution of who they're becoming. So it's important no matter what age or what stage they're at. But when you get to be 60, 70, 80 years old, all the crazy, these machinations in your head where you're like, oh, I can't say this, or I shouldn't do this, or what will people think? That goes out the window. for the most part. And most women are willing to tell you their deepest, darkest secrets, and you'll always find connection. I don't care who it is. For the four of us sitting, if we talk about who we are and what our experiences have been, there's going to be at least one, if not many more, pieces of connection. Like, oh my gosh, I did that too, or I feel that way too. And you're right. You're looking for connection, and stories are what connect us together.
Rachel, I appreciate the question. I actually had a question for you. So, and then I could comment more. But when you asked this question, were you thinking about it in terms of connecting with people when they come to you for your services? Is that the context of your question?
No, within the services I provide, I'm able to do that pretty easily because it's basically touch therapy, right? Like I'm touching, like, it's an intimate setting, and they immediately, and my environment is such that they will just woosa out. It's safe. I'm very good in that setting. It's more like when you're just out. So here it is, because I've moved and I'm trying to rebuild my circle of women. I'm trying to really find my people, right? So I'm going through this process, and I find that I struggle more with it too in networking. So as a business owner, like I go to a lot of business networking events, which may not be like the time to look for that connection, but I am. Like I can't help it. It is this thing where I'm like, I'm looking for my people, and not my people, but I'm looking for connection. I'm looking for women I want in my life. Right. And so I'm always on the lookout for that. And so depending on the situation, some are harder than others. But in where I am now, trying to meet as many new people and try to create that circle again, it's not, I understand it's not a fast process. You can't really put it in fifth gear and take off with it. But I'm finding I'm having to practice doing it more and more and more. And for me, it's a little on the draining side. I'm not a 60-minute interviewer. I'm not trying to be that. But also, it's like I myself am a social being. I love having my group of women, and I miss what I don't have. They're there, but like the connection is a little broken because of distance, time, all the things, right? So that's where it comes from.
When you say story, because you talked about story, were you talking mostly about connection when you said story, making connection with people?
Yeah, I wish conversation and dialogue happened a little differently than what's I think was the cultural norm. It's like, how are you? What do you do? Where are you from? How many are you married? Do you have kids? Like that. And I really am interested in more of what your experience has been in this life, or what have you experienced in this life. I got really lucky. Recently, I was talking to this woman and I didn't know her. And all of a sudden she's telling me how she was, I guess she was an Air Force brat or something like that. And she lived in India for a long time. And then she kind of was talking about her journey as she followed her father in her international journey, and what that was like growing up at being a young girl, and then as a teenager, and then as a young woman in late teens, early 20s. And that is what I was looking for. And I got lucky. And I got lucky that she was just open to share it. And I was like, oh my gosh, that was it. That's what I'm looking for.
I would love to say, I want to just confirm everything that Melissa said and just zoom into the chase, cut to the chase, which is really that you can't force connection. It's like we have to accept what is, and we have to be who we are and trust that. If we want to open up and meet new people, just be who you are to the depths of your being. Trust what happens with people. It doesn't feel right with this one. It does feel right with that one. And live your life and trust and trust and trust. And that's it.
And it's curious people. The curious people are the ones that are seeking the stories, and the curious people are the ones that are willing to tell you their story. So it's really finding those super curious people and bumping into them, and it all lights up. Like you said, you ask a simple question and somebody unloads all kinds of information that's going to give you a really well-rounded picture of who they are. But I think not everybody's curious, and they're just not. And, maybe they will be when they get older. I don't know. But I have been since I was a little girl. This whole thing about storytelling, which I didn't know that I was really good at until I was much older, or I didn't know that I should try it, even though I was sort of doing it, but in a pseudo way, it's always been there. So it is part of my curiosity in understanding other people, so I better understand myself. So the more that people say to me, it's mirrored back to me. I then get a chance to think about what they've just said, relate it to my own experiences, and it either resonates with me or it might challenge me to think about myself and the world a little bit differently.
I also think that when we trust who we are and trust life, those people are going to show up.
Yes.
You can't make it happen. It's like we have to trust life's process.
Yeah.
And starting here with our own self, and then the rest unfolds. And sometimes we like it and sometimes we don't. I mean, for me, my journey, it's a spiritual journey, is learning how to be okay with whatever happens.
Right.
And enjoy it and trust and learn and grow. We can't force it. We just, we can't make it happen.
Mm-hmm.
We have to let it unfold.
Something fascinating to me on the flip side of all the storytelling is all of you are also good listeners.
It's the process of figuring out who we are. You know what I mean? And again, now that I'm older, it's so important. But did I realize it when I was 30, 40? No, I was on the fast train of life. Like you said, Rachel, people talk about, oh, I'm married, I've got kids, I got this is my job, this is what I do. And it's almost like you get stuck on that train, that fast train, and you don't even have time to think about, how does all this serve me? Or how does it affect me? Or how does it make me who I am? Or maybe there's more to me than that. And I don't think I really paid attention to that until I was much older and sat down and said, wait a minute, get me off this train. And that's what happened to me at 65. Get me off the train of this whirlwind corporate career, where I was basically acting for decades. I was such a great actress. And what am I doing? And what do I really want to do? And why did I do this? And so it was finding that space to sit with myself and figure out, wait a minute, there's more to me than all of that. That's not even me. So who is me? And I didn't really figure that out till I was 65. And that was 10 years ago. And that's when, I'm really good at storytelling. I'm good at listening. I'm good at whatever. So parlay that into something that I fantasize about. And for me, that was filmmaking.
Melissa, do you have a question you would like to ask the ladies?
Yeah, especially Rachel, because you are in the skin services, I don't even know what you want to call it, area. And because I am an old woman with questionable fine lines and all the things that go with getting old, sagging skin, how do you feel, or how do you deal with the ageist view of women's skincare? Because it's there, and I battle it every day, trying to look my best and have healthy skin. That's my goal. I will never go under the knife, and many people will, and that's their decision. But there is this pervasive ageist stereotype about how women's faces should look. And when you get to be 75, your options are go under the knife if you want to look like Kris Jenner, or just stay depressed because you're going to look old. How do you deal with that? How do women deal with that? And how do we in this ageist society say, no, no, skincare is about having healthy skin, not about looking like you're 50 years younger than you really are? I don't know. Kind of a big question, but
No,
curious.
so I always tell people I can make you look 20 if you are 20. That's it, right? That's the first thing. I have always pushed against the anti-aging messages of skincare and the beauty industry as a whole. So that's kind of my wheelhouse. I reframe it by calling it age management, which is basically what you're looking for. You're looking to look the best you can with where you are. Like you can't go back in time and like stay out of the sun, right? Sun damage, UV damage is like responsible for like 90% of all aging issues. You want to stay young, you know, don't get burnt, limit your time in sun exposure, right?
We were bad in the
Oh, we were
60s.
terrible,
Oh, we were
right? I remember my
terrible.
grandmother putting the suntan lotion on me. I think it was the Hawaiian Tropic 6, but she thought she was doing something for me, right? Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. So for you, like if you came to me, we're right here, right? Like you would be like, oh, thank God I have a professional telling me like I'm on track, like there's nothing wrong with me. I'm beautiful. I'm you know, all the great things, right? Where I run up is against women who have bought in to all of the other stuff. And they come to me and they're like, well, what about the filler? And what about the facelift? And they start doing all this crap to their face, right? If you're listening to this, I'm pulling back on my skin, right? And we all done that. We hold our hands up by our ears and we pull our face back a little bit. And they're like, oh, there's 30, there's 20, whatever it is. And so those kind of challenging those mindsets, that mindset and that push culturally, I don't know that I'm always successful, but my clients say they hear my voice in the back of their head a lot. Or like when they're doing their
Good.
skincare, they hear my voice in their head, which is always super creepy to me. And I feel so badly for them. Like, get my voice out of your head. But I do plant the seed of aging. It's just a natural process. You can't avoid it. And whatever you've done, you've already done. If creating a skincare routine for you, going 14 products deep is going to make you feel better about where we're going, I'll build that out for you all day, every day. If you just come to me and say, I just want to make sure my skin is hydrated, I can get you down like okay, 3 products. This is where we are. Or 1 sunscreen. Like that's it. Okay. You still want to use your Dove soap? Well, you know, can we just get a better sunscreen maybe? I think that is where I come from. And I will tell you that voices like mine are getting bigger in the industry. And we're pushing back. When they were doing the 2025 trends for skincare, one of them was a decline in the medical spa type services, where everything was anti-aging, lots of peels, lots of the other modalities that are out there. Now there's been a shift to where like people still want some peels, but they also want to come in and experience like a complete self-care experience. So like I incorporate yoga nidra, if my table could talk kind of thing, like just decompress, tell your story, everything that happens on the table stays on the table kind of thing.
You just said something that hit me, and that is you could combine this whole storytelling with your skincare business. I'm not sure how, but you just said it in a way that made me think there might be a number of women, maybe even men, I don't know about that, who would want to know that they could come to you to do more than just skincare and have a conversation. I wonder if there's a way.
Yeah,
You know?
it's hard to put that in a product, in a service description, right?
Sure.
Like you can't, it's hard to quantify that experience, but people who finally come, they're like, oh, it's not a facial. It's a facial, but it's not a facial.
Much more than a facial.
Yeah.
It's
But I
the
hold space for
connection.
that.
That's awesome.
I think Gail would agree. Like you have to hold space. It has to be, you have to have an intention
Yeah.
to hold that space for people. But I'm willing to do that, right? Like
Right.
I'm willing, not every esthetician wants connection, wants spiritual connection, whatever it is. Like maybe they just want some high levels, kind of gossipy kind of stuff.
But
you
I
know.
could see as somebody who's helping someone with their skin and touching them, you're touching these people. So how much
But there are a lot of
better is-
estheticians that will use brushes
Yeah,
and things
you're-
like
you're
that,
right.
and they
You're
use
right.
machines. And when I see that, I'm like, you can tell who's who in the zoo.
Yeah.
When you see people giving that like massage or whatever, you can always figure out what kind of esthetician they are.
Yeah, interesting.
That's incredible.
Love it.
Want to be part of the conversation? Join our women's community on Patreon. Check out the notes below. Melissa, did you want to ask Gail a question?
Yeah, Gail, who I know, and who I know is a deeply rooted spiritual individual who's constantly chasing her inner self and reviewing herself on a regular basis. I've always wanted to know, and I haven't asked you this, have you always been that way? Or was there something in your timeline of life that stopped you and said, wait a minute, I want to learn more about myself. I want to go deeper into who I am and what I'm putting out there. How did that happen?
That's an amazing question. That really is an amazing question. As young as I could remember, it's always been there, but not on a conscious level. Like I'll tell you that when I used to have this crazy thing when I was a little girl. I don't know why it was on Halloween, but every Halloween, I would go into the bathroom and I would look at myself in the mirror and I would say, oh, wow, you have more freckles. Oh, you're missing a tooth. Oh, your hair looks different than last year. But the one that is noticing is still the same. So it's like even at 10 years old, I had that understanding of my spiritual essence, but I didn't really know it. And it's funny because I have a spiritual teacher that I work with now, Michael Singer. He wrote The Untethered Soul. That's how he's kind of famous. I work with him every day, all day long. He actually said one day that exact thing. He said, when you're 10 years old and you look in the mirror, and then when you're 20 and you're 50, you look different. And I was like, oh my God. So that said, I would say when I was 14 years old, that's when I had a trauma, the trauma of my life. It was my parents' divorce. It was a very, very, very painful experience. And I would say that experience itself was really the impetus for my spiritual journey. But it wasn't until I would say I was in my early 30s where it became a conscious thing, where it was like, okay, this is what my life is about, exploring who I really am. And then at that point, I actually moved into a yoga ashram and blah, 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 blah. And up until here I am today.
Yeah, yeah. It's always, but see, you always had it. And I think that same thing we talked about, curiosity, it's in us, but we might not use it till later. There might be something that will kick it in and say, oh,
Right.
wow, I should use this for good, or I could use this in my everyday living or my work or whatever it is. I think we all have this inner being that's waiting to be let out. And yours came out pretty early. Mine was filled with confusion and craziness for way too long. And I didn't.
Mine was too. It's still confusion and craziness. It never stops.
That's true. Probably
That's
till the
not who
day.
we are, you know. Like,
Yeah. Till the day we die, there will be crazy things going on around us and in us and
I
whatnot.
appreciate
But
the
yeah,
question.
no, that's really interesting.
That's part of my story, right?
Yep.
Maybe someday I'll tell my own.
There you go. There you go.
Yeah.
Oh.
And even the bravery of being able to talk about those things, the spiritual piece of us, and finding those people, thinking about Rachel's comment a moment ago, that connection, those people that you can actually be with and say, oh, because one of the things I'm finding on that same note is as I'm meeting people who are into the next decade and into the next decade, they're starting to realize how much is in their control that they thought was out of their control as things are, so to speak, being revealed to them of like, this is part of your pathway. You're like, so this concept of manifesting, to me, the vocabulary word is such a simple vocabulary word to what it is. You know, I've had people say, well, write what you think it's going to be once it's over, you know. But I'm like, well, yeah, because I'm already been there in some space and so I already know that.
Yeah.
It's so interesting to think about that because one of the things I love when Rachel and I first met, and we talked about you spend this life pure when you're young, then all these things happen. And then you spend this part of your life going, okay, I've got my 12 steps to get back to me and reigniting the person that you always were that got hidden inside from
Mhm.
all of life's traumas and all of
Mhm.
life's experiences and all of life's whatever was coming at you. So it's just I love listening to all the stories and all the journeys. I really do.
Mm.
But you know what? What you just said is what story and storytelling is all about, because it's the universal component of story that makes it so powerful. It's like when I work on a memoir, it's important to get the person's events. Okay, this happened, this happened, this happened. But you know what? The story is underneath. The story is, and of course, one story isn't going to connect to everybody, but it's what's underneath the story, the reflection that other people can identify with. So you could tell your story and somebody didn't have any of the same experiences, but we're all human. You know what I mean? We're all dealing with, like, well, wait, how can I love myself more? And who am I? So it's that universal aspect that I think you just spoke to is what makes stories so powerful.
Yeah.
And Gail, what questions would you like to ask the ladies?
Okay. So, Rachel, this is coming from a private conversation that the two of us had. I'd love to know how your yoga journey is coming.
It's it's coming. I started listening to there's a book that goes audiobook that goes through all the sutras. I'm like, you know what, let me just sit with that one for a minute and kind of going through the sutras and just deepening my understanding of all of the aspects of yoga. And for those of you who don't know, a sutra, the translation is thread. So it's these threads that make up all of what yoga is. And so
Not
that
just
part has
asanas.
yeah, it's just not an asana, which is which is the poses. It was interesting. I was listening to a podcast and it was with yoga instructors, and he said, you know, we don't even teach yoga here. What we offer is, you know, 1 hour pose events. Right? Yoga pose events. That's what we offer here in the United States. Like we don't offer yoga at all, for the most part anyway. And I thought that was really interesting. I was like, oh, this guy is speaking my language. So let me go look him up, kind of thing. So that's how it's going. I did have a realization that I was looking for mentor, I was looking for teacher. And what kind of came back was it's your journey and you have to do it alone in some ways. That kind of hit in some kind of way. And I would say too that while I understand that there's a piece that I need to do alone, I wish I could do it in community.
Mm.
And I think more than teacher, instructor, I'm looking to have my own journey, but with others, alongside others. And I think that's that's a little different.
Is that what prompted you to ask your original question?
No, your introductions prompted that. I was inspired. I was like, oh, storytellers. Here we go.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Melissa, I had a question for you, but I'm actually going to change it now.
Okay.
based on the question you asked me. And so my question to you is, what prompted you to ask that question to me?
Because I'm so curious. I'm curious as to how people become who they are. And I've listened to you many times talk about your spirituality and how important it is to you. And I'm always trying to figure mine out. And so I'm very curious as to when you realized when all this was brewing inside of you and how you dealt with it and when you dealt with it. Because my spirituality has been fleeting. It's been like this over the years. And again, I didn't pay, it's there, it's big in me, but I didn't have time to deal with it. And so I'm always curious about people who seem to have figured that part out and continue to delve into their inner self and who they are and how they want to be and what they need to do to make that happen. So that's sort of why I asked it, because I'm curious for me. I learn from you. I learn from you and you, all of you. Every time I have a conversation with somebody, I hear something that can relate back to me. And again, question how I'm dealing with something, or it might not relate to me, but it might be a piece of information I can use in the future. So it's that whole connection and curiosity that we've all been talking about.
Yeah. Well, I want to respond to you by saying that I certainly don't have it all figured out. I mean, right. That's totally not even like, doesn't even make sense. You know
Well,
what I mean? One thing that I would say is just the intent inside you. That's the guidepost in a way. All the other stuff, it doesn't even matter. You know, it's almost like the homing pigeon. It's like just keep coming back. Well, wait, what's my inquiry? What's my intent here? Just keep coming back to that. And that's this.
yeah,
Does that make sense?
it makes perfect sense. And I find myself asking that, doing that regularly now where I didn't when I was younger. And,
Yeah,
and,
it's
it, and
interesting.
it just clarifies everything in an instant if you ask
Yeah.
yourself that.
And it's interesting because I want to bring this back to something Rachel brought up, but just about having a teacher. Like I know for myself, the journey is always along. I mean, it's our journey. Nobody's going to have the journey. When we take our last breath, we're going to go where we're going alone. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
And so, like, for me, I have found that I know that it's my journey and it's my work. And personally, I always felt that I needed a teacher. Not that that doesn't mean that I don't have my own journey, but that I find it so helpful to look to somebody that's been where I already am, you know, so that I could have some guideposts. The first spiritual teacher I had was when I moved into the ashram and I was in my mid 30s. I was living in Manhattan at the time, and that's when it sort of just became a conscious thing. And I got into Kripalu yoga. It just so happened that the teacher in the neighborhood, she was a Kripalu teacher. So I went to Kripalu one day and I heard the guru there say the term witness consciousness. I had never heard it before. And I was like, I want that. That's what I want. And I got them to fire me. I was working at McGraw-Hill at the time as a copywriter. I got them to lay me off. It was, you know, stuff was happening. So it worked out good. And I picked up and I sublet my apartment and I moved into the ashram. And so that was my spiritual teacher for a while. Then when I moved out of the ashram, I found a spiritual guide, actually through a literary agent, my first literary agent. And I worked with him for a while. He passed away about 2 years after I started working with him, but I still had his book. And so I worked with him. I practiced what I learned from him. But I had met Mickey Singer in the ashram. He came there to teach to the residents. And one day he said this word, samskara, which is a Sanskrit word. And it basically means a blockage, because then everything comes down to energy. Like that's another thing that as I've gotten older, I can get behind that and explore myself as an energetic being. And he said that word. And I was like, oh my God, I never forgot it. But then I went on, I lived my life, this, that, and the other thing. I met somebody and she said, I think you would really resonate with this. And she said it was an 8-lesson workshop by someone named Michael Singer. I'm like, Michael Singer, that sounds really familiar. And then I was like, oh my God, it's Mickey, because that's what he calls himself, So, and I did that workshop, and that was it. For the
Wow.
last 5 years, there has not been a day when I haven't listened to his teachings, and then when I'm not listening, practicing. So I just know myself, like I feel like I would be dead without him, because he's taught me how to live. I mean, I have to do it myself, but like he really explores the energy component, and that's what yoga is. It's
Right.
the prana, the energy in the body. And so since I started working with him, I've learned how to let the painful energy come up that we suppress because it's too difficult. Like when we have a difficult experience that happened to us in our lives energetically, rather than let experiencing it fully so we can go back out into the universe, we don't do that. And then the energy stays in us. And that's what trauma is. And that's what a samskara is. And so it was like that. I was afraid to feel that painful energy in me. And he taught me how to do that. In other words, like I just didn't know how, And so now I know how. And I mean, I've had the biggest release lately. Like it's been going and getting more and more core, and like the last 5 years. And here I am now. And it's really only a couple of weeks ago, I swear, where I had such an unbelievable release. I feel like my whole life has opened up.
Wow.
It never stopped, but I needed a teacher because I didn't know how to do that. It's okay, Anyway.
We all need teachers. And I think through connection, even, you don't have to have a teacher.
No,
It could just be my conversation with you. You taught me
Totally.
something,
Totally.
and it's that
look any certain way.
constant connection of learning about yourself through other people's experiences and conversation.
That's the universality of storytelling.
Yep. So important. So
Um,
important.
Incredibly important. And just listening today to all the stories, I've walked away learning much more about all of you. And I love every moment. And so it's coming to that time. So it's time for our last words. Gail, what would you like to say for your last words of today's panel?
Oh, gosh. I'll say that I'm so grateful that I'm with the three of you. And I really appreciate this conversation. I feel like I said a lot of stuff that like, oh my God, am I really going to say this? But there it was. So I just thank you very much. I really appreciate it. I feel that I trust you all. I'm very grateful.
Thank you. Yeah. Thank you for sharing. That's wonderful. And Melissa.
Thank you. It's been fun. It's just, it's energizing. You've got my juices flowing. I'm going to go see Rachel and get my connected facial. I'm not that far from you, Rachel.
That's
Not that
beautiful.
far. So, but, for the listeners out there, and for the people wondering what they're doing or, can they tell their story or should they tell their story? One of the things that we didn't touch on was judgment. There's judgment all around us all day long. And we can tell our stories to somebody who will judge us negatively, and that will shut us down. Walk away from those people. Judgment exists, but you don't need to accept it, and you don't need to use it yourself. If we can all get through judgment and get rid of it, throw it in the trash, we will be much better as a human race. Everybody's experience is different, and everybody's experience is right for them. And for us to accept them as they are through connection, it is so, so important. So just think about any judgments you may have and try to let those things go away. And then you'll be more open to the connections.
I second that. Fantastic. Thank you so much for sharing, Melissa. And Rachel.
I'm going to quote Oprah here. I remember her saying, and it always stuck with me, that if you have the courage to tell me your story, the least I can do is listen. I heard that, I don't even know how long ago, but it is something that has been a guide when people decide to share. And I will also say that stories evolve with perspective. While our experiences, while what we felt during those experiences, they did happen. We did feel the way we felt going through it. But I will say, not from that perspective, like time heals all wounds, but perspective and then understanding of self. I will say this, the older I get, the more somewhere along the line, I found the quarter, bought myself some more self-esteem, right? The more I acknowledge who I am and allow myself to feel worth, and the more I pour into myself, the story of my life changes because through the lens in which it's told is completely different. And so also I would say that people who are, when they're thinking about their story and they're questioning like, well, maybe I don't feel that way anymore. That's the way it's supposed to be.
Right.
You're not supposed to stay stuck. Right. You're allowed to evolve and have perspective on your experiences and how you see others within the context of your story. And that is okay. And that's how I will end it.
And those are wise words. Thank you for that. And ladies, thank you for joining us today, Rachel, Melissa, and Gail. And thank you everyone for watching or listening to this special episode of Women's Health, Wealth, and Happiness, Interviews to Inspire with our inspiring women. Yay! Yay! We did it! That was awesome. I'm like, oh my gosh, we could talk for another hour.